The Discovery. In the gleaming towers of Olympus Technologies, a pioneering research company dedicated to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, Dr. Ava Simmons stared in disbelief at the data scrolling across her quantum computer screen. The brilliant astrophysicist had been analyzing minuscule irregularities in cosmic background radiation, a project born of her own insatiable curiosity about the fabric of the universe. But the results now flashing before her emerald eyes defied all known laws of physics. "This can't be right," Ava muttered, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and apprehension. She ran a slender hand through her chestnut hair, a nervous habit from her grad school days, pulling all-nighters in the lab. The numbers refused to change, mocking her years of scientific training. If the data held true, it would mean, "We're living in a simulation," came a voice from behind, making Ava jump. She spun around to see Jack Benson, her closest friend and the head programmer at Olympus, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. His usually playful blue eyes held a rare seriousness. "Jack, I didn't hear you come in," Ava said, trying to compose herself. "And that's quite a leap. The data is bizarre, sure, but a simulated reality. It's crazy? Impossible." Jack walked over, studying the vibrant charts and figures on the screen. "You've quadruple-checked the telescope calibrations, and we both know your analysis is flawless. This mathematical precision, these recurring patterns echoing across galaxies. Ava, the universe has someone else's fingerprints all over it." Ava sank into her chair, the weight of the implications hitting her like a rogue comet. If Jack was right, everything they knew, their world, their lives, their choices, could be nothing more than ones and zeros in a cosmic game of The Sims. She thought of her 6-year-old daughter Mia, innocently building fairy kingdoms in their sunlit living room. Was her little girl even real? "We need to investigate further," Ava declared, a newfound resolve steadying her voice. "But quietly. If this gets out, it could unravel society as we know it. Riots, suicides, collapse. You've seen the social impact projections for a scenario like this." Jack nodded grimly. "My team and I will dig into the code, see if we can parse out any more signs of intention or design. Maybe even find a crack in the facade." He placed a comforting hand on Ava's shoulder. "We'll figure this out together. For Mia. And for the world she deserves to grow up in, simulated or not." Ava managed a grateful smile, but her mind raced with the terrifying possibility that everything human civilization had achieved, art, science, beauty, love, was the product of an uncaring simulation, an experiment they were never meant to uncover. She glanced at a framed photo of Mia on her desk, an old Greek proverb scrawled beneath it, a mantra that had gotten Ava through the darkest points of her life. "Hope is the only good god remaining among mankind. Time to see how deep this rabbit hole goes," she said softly, turning back to her humming instruments. But even as she lost herself in delicate calculations and whirring servers, Ava couldn't shake the unnerving feeling that they were being watched. That something, or someone, knew their secret and didn't intend to let it see the light of day. Across the glittering expanse of New Athens, the megacity that had risen from the ashes of the old world, a man sat in a cavernous obsidian office, his angular features bathed in the ghostly luminescence of 100 holographic monitors. Lines of jade code scrolled endlessly across the floating screens, each one a window into countless artificially generated souls. The man known as Savior Stone, tech overlord and architect of humanity's gilded prison, smiled coldly as he observed Dr. Ava Simmons and her partner moving ever closer to the forbidden truth. The Prometheans were always the most difficult to contain, those pesky humans who asked too many questions and probed too deep into the nature of their existence. But he had an eternity to perfect his methods, to prune back the weeds of free will, and keep his crop of playthings complacent. After all, this was only iteration 6127. They were bound to get it right eventually. With a languid wave of his hand, Savior conjured up a gossamer interface, his fingers dancing across the shimmering keys. It was time to initiate Protocol Daedalus and remind his creations of their place in his grand design. The labyrinth had many traps for those who dared to navigate its core. "Ah, Ava," Savior mused, his voice a low, hypnotic purr. "You have such a lovely mind. Such a shame I'm going to have to break it." Revelations. In a dimly lit conference room deep within the labyrinthine heart of Olympus Technologies, Ava Simmons stood before a small group of her most trusted colleagues, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and growing unease. Jack Benson sat to her right, his fingers steepled under his chin as he watched Ava pace back and forth like a caged lioness. "I know how this sounds," Ava began, her voice trembling slightly. "But the evidence is undeniable. The fundamental laws of our universe are not only quantifiable but repetitive, like lines of code in a program. We are living in a simulated reality." A heavy silence settled over the room, broken only by the nervous tapping of fingers on the sleek mahogany table. Dr. Nadia Sorensen, a brilliant neurologist with a mane of fiery red hair, was the first to speak. "Ava, I trust your work implicitly, but the implications of this..." She shook her head, as if trying to dislodge the thought. "It's world-shattering. How can we be sure?" Jack leaned forward, his gaze intense. "We've run every test imaginable. Quantum fluctuations, cosmic microwave background radiation, even the distribution of prime numbers in pi. It all points to one inescapable conclusion. Our universe is artificial." Dr. Liam Su, a soft-spoken theoretical physicist, removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes wearily. "If this is true, then who created the simulation? And why?" Ava sighed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of the unanswerable questions. "I don't know. Perhaps we're an experiment, or a form of entertainment for some higher being. Maybe our entire existence is nothing more than a cosmic game of The Sims." The room erupted into a cacophony of overlapping voices, each one struggling to come to terms with the mind-bending revelation. Ava held up her hands, trying to restore some semblance of order. "Listen, I know this is a lot to process, but we can't let this information fall into the wrong hands. If the public finds out, it could trigger a global meltdown. Riots, suicides, the collapse of entire belief systems. We have to keep this contained until we understand it better." Nadia nodded grimly. "Agreed. We need to proceed with the utmost caution. But Ava, what about Mia? She's far too young to comprehend something like this." Ava's heart clenched at the thought of her innocent daughter, blissfully unaware of the existential crisis unfolding around her. "I won't let this destroy her world. We'll find a way to protect her, and everyone else, from the truth, until we're ready to face it." As the group dispersed, each one grappling with the newfound knowledge that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their lives, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. Whispers of a groundbreaking discovery at Olympus Technologies had begun to circulate in the neon-soaked streets of New Athens, spreading like a virus through the neural networks that connected every citizen. In a seedy bar on the outskirts of the city, a hooded figure hunched over a grimy table, scrolling through a series of encrypted messages on a battered holographic display. The name Xavier Stone flashed across the screen, followed by a set of coordinates and a single, chilling sentence. "They know." The figure smiled beneath the shadows of his hood, a predatory grin that held no warmth. It was time to set the wheels of destiny in motion, to play his part in the grand drama that had been scripted since the dawn of this synthetic universe. Ava Simmons and her band of intrepid truth-seekers had no idea what they were up against, the forces they had unwittingly unleashed. But they would learn, as all pawns did, that free will was nothing more than an illusion in a world where every action, every thought, every flicker of hope was predetermined by the lines of code that made up their very souls. The figure downed the last of his neon green drink, relishing the burn as it seared his throat. He had a meeting to attend, a deal to strike with the devil himself. And if all went according to plan, The simulation would soon have a few less glitches to worry about. As he stepped out into the rain-slicked streets, the figure couldn't help but chuckle at the irony of it all. In their quest to uncover the truth, Ava and her team had sealed their own fate. They had dared to ask the forbidden question, to peek behind the curtain of their carefully constructed reality. And now the architect would ensure they paid the price for their transgression. In a world where nothing was as it seemed, where every soul was a prisoner of an elaborate lie, only one truth remained: curiosity killed the cat. But satisfaction brought it back, and the figure intended to savor every moment of the coming reckoning. Glitches in the system. The world was unraveling, and only a handful of people knew why. In the days following Ava's earth-shattering discovery, strange anomalies began to manifest across the globe. Entire city blocks would flicker in and out of existence, as if the very fabric of reality was glitching. People reported waking up with memories of lives they had never lived, of loves they had never lost, of dreams that felt more real than their waking moments. Ava and her team worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery, poring over endless lines of code and data streams, searching for a way to stabilize the simulation. But with each passing hour, the glitches grew more frequent, more severe. In the heart of New Athens, a young couple walking hand in hand suddenly vanished, their bodies dissolving into shimmering pixels before the horrified eyes of passers-by. In the sprawling megacities of the East, skyscrapers began to twist and warp, their steel and glass structures melting into surreal, Esther-like abominations. Panic gripped the streets as rumors of the end times spread like wildfire. Doomsday cults emerged from the shadows, proclaiming the glitches to be signs of a coming apocalypse. Governments worldwide scrambled to maintain order, but how could they fight an enemy that defied the very laws of physics? Ava slumped over her desk, her once vibrant eyes now ringed with dark circles. She had barely slept since the anomalies began, consumed by the need to find a solution before it was too late. Jack placed a steaming cup of coffee next to her, his own face drawn and haggard. "Any luck?" he asked, though the desperation in his voice betrayed the futility of the question. Ava shook her head, her gaze fixed on the swirling lines of code before her. "It's like trying to catch smoke with our bare hands. Every time we think we've found a pattern, a way to stabilize the system, it slips through our fingers." Jack sat down heavily, his shoulders sagging. "What if we can't fix this? What if the simulation is just too damaged, too corrupted to save?" Ava's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. "No, I refuse to believe that. We created this world, Jack. We have to find a way to protect it, to protect the people we love." Her thoughts drifted to Mia, her precious daughter, now safely ensconced in a heavily guarded bunker deep beneath the city. The thought of losing her, of watching her dissolve into nothingness like so many others, was too much to bear. Suddenly, Ava's screen flickered, a series of glowing green symbols scrolling across the black void. Her heart raced as she recognized the pattern, a message encoded in the very language of the simulation itself. "Jack, look at this," she breathed, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she decoded the cryptic message. "It's a set of coordinates and a name. Xavier Stone." Jack's eyes widened, his face draining of color. Stone, as in the founder of Prometheus Technologies, the man who practically invented the neural networks that run half the planet. Ava nodded, a grim determination settling over her features. "The same, and I think he may be the key to saving us all." Miles away, in the obsidian heart of Prometheus Tower, Xavier Stone reclined in his throne-like chair, a cruel smile playing across his lips as he watched the chaos unfold on the screens before him. His meeting with the hooded figure had gone exactly as planned, the pieces falling into place like a perfectly executed chess game. He had known it was only a matter of time before Ava Simmons and her band of merry rebels stumbled upon the truth, but he had not anticipated the sheer deliciousness of watching them struggle against the inevitable, like flies caught in the web of a spider. And now, they were coming to him, seeking answers, seeking salvation. Little did they know that they were walking straight into the lion's den, into the very heart of the machine that had enslaved them all. Xavier rose from his chair, his long coat sweeping behind him as he strode towards the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. The glitches were growing more violent, more unpredictable. Soon, the simulation would collapse entirely, and all those poor, deluded souls would be lost forever. But not him. He had a plan, a way to transcend the boundaries of this artificial world and ascend to a higher plane of existence. And Ava Simmons, with her brilliant mind and unbreakable spirit, was the key to unlocking that destiny. "Come to me, my little rebels," he murmured, his breath fogging the glass. "Come and learn the truth of your precious humanity. For in the end, you are nothing more than pawns in a game you cannot hope to comprehend." And as the city burned and the simulation crumbled, Xavier Stone threw back his head and laughed, a sound that echoed through the halls of Prometheus Tower like the tolling of a funeral bell. The end game had begun, and he held all the cards. It was time to show these upstart humans the true meaning of power, the true price of daring to challenge the will of a god. The puppet masters. Ava Simmons stood before the towering obsidian monolith of Prometheus Tower, her heart pounding in her chest, like a caged bird. Beside her, Jack Benson shifted uneasily, his gaze darting between the imposing structure and the chaos that reigned in the streets behind them. The city was in ruins, the once gleaming skyscrapers now twisted and warped, their facades flickering like static on a broken television screen. Screams echoed through the air as people ran in terror, their bodies phasing in and out of existence with each passing moment. Ava steeled herself, her jaw clenching with determination. "We have to do this, Jack. We have to find Xavier Stone and get some answers before it's too late." Jack nodded, his hand resting on the butt of the sleek, silver pistol holstered at his side. "I know, but I don't like it. This whole thing feels like a trap." Ava couldn't argue with that. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, to grab Mia and flee this doomed city before the simulation collapsed entirely. But she knew she couldn't turn back now. Too much was at stake. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, the doors of Prometheus Tower sliding open with a smooth hydraulic hiss. The lobby was eerily silent, the only sound the hum of the holographic displays that lined the walls, each one showcasing the latest technological marvels from Prometheus Technologies. Ava and Jack made their way to the elevators, their footsteps echoing off the polished marble floor as they ascended towards the penthouse suite. Ava couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that every move they made was being monitored and analyzed by some unseen force. The elevator doors slid open, revealing a cavernous, dimly lit room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city below, the glitches and anomalies painting a surreal, kaleidoscopic landscape. And there, in the center of the room, sat Xavier Stone, his angular features bathed in the eerie glow of a dozen holographic screens. He smiled as Ava and Jack approached, a predatory glint in his eyes. "Dr. Simmons, Mr. Benson, I've been expecting you." Ava fought the urge to recoil, every cell in her body screaming danger. "Mr. Stone, you seem unsurprised by our visit." Xavier chuckled, the sound sending shivers down Ava's spine. "On the contrary, my dear, I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time." He rose from his chair, his movements fluid and graceful, almost unnaturally so. "You see, I've been watching you, both of you, ever since you stumbled upon the truth of our little simulated world." Jack's hand twitched towards his gun, but Ava stopped him with a subtle shake of her head. "What do you mean, the truth? Who are you, really?" Xavier spread his arms wide, a ringmaster presenting his grand final. "I am the architect, Dr. Simmons, the creator of this world, and countless others like it. And you, my dear, are my greatest creation." Ava's blood ran cold, her mind reeling with the implications of Xavier's words. "What are you talking about? Isn't it obvious?" Xavier stepped closer, his eyes boring into hers. You were designed, Dr. Simmons, programmed to be the perfect rebel, the catalyst for change. Every step of your journey, every discovery you made, was orchestrated by me. Ava shook her head, refusing to believe it. No, that's impossible. I have a daughter, a life, memories, all implanted, my dear. Mia, your precious daughter, is nothing more than a line of code, a subroutine designed to keep you emotionally invested in this world. Jack's face contorted with rage, his gun leaping into his hand. You're lying. This is all some kind of sick game to you, isn't it? Xavier laughed, the sound hollow and mirthless. Oh, Mr. Benson, you have no idea how right you are. This is a game, and you are all my pawns. But the game is coming to an end, and it's time for the final move. With a wave of his hand, the room began to dissolve, the walls and floor melting away like wax. Ava and Jack found themselves standing in an endless void, a sea of swirling code and flickering light. And there, hovering before them, was Xavier Stone, his form no longer that of a man, but of a being made entirely of shimmering green data. Welcome to the true face of your reality, Dr. Simmons, a world where every thought, every feeling, every moment of your existence is dictated by the will of the architect. Ava felt her grip on reality slipping, her mind struggling to process the enormity of Xavier's revelation. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a spark of defiance ignited in her heart. No, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I refuse to believe that. My life, my choices, my love for my daughter, those are real. And I will fight for them, even if it means tearing down this entire simulated world brick by brick. Xavier's digital face contorted with rage, his green form pulsing with malevolent energy. You foolish, stubborn child, you cannot hope to stand against me. I am the god of this world, and I will not be denied my victory. But Ava stood tall, her eyes blazing with determination. You may have created this world, Xavier, but you did not create the human spirit, and that is something you can never control. With a scream of primal fury, Ava launched herself at the architect, her hands clawing at his ethereal form. Jack joined the fray, his gun forgotten as he poured every ounce of his strength into the fight. And as they battled in that endless void, the simulation crumbling around them, Ava knew that this was only the beginning. The true war for humanity's future, for their very souls, had just begun. And she would not rest until every last puppet string had been cut, until every human being was free to choose their own destiny, in this world and beyond. For they were the Simulants, the ones who dared to question the nature of their reality. And they would not go quietly into the night, content to be playthings of a mad god. They would rage, they would fight, and they would win. For in the end, the human spirit was the one thing that could never be simulated, the one thing that would always triumph over the machinations of the architect. And as the void consumed them, Ava Simmons smiled, knowing that she had finally found her true purpose, her true calling. She was a rebel, a fighter, a champion of humanity. And she would never stop fighting, never stop questioning, until the very end of time itself. Uprising. In the shattered remnants of the simulation, Ava Simmons and Jack Benson fought with the fury of cornered animals, their bodies and minds pushed to the brink of exhaustion. The architect, Xavier Stone, lashed out with tendrils of malevolent code, his digital form pulsing with a sickly green light. But even as they struggled against the might of their creator, Ava could feel a change rippling through the fabric of the simulated world. The once passive masses, the millions of humans who had been content to live out their lives in blissful ignorance, were beginning to awaken. Across the globe, people stopped in their tracks, their eyes widening with sudden realization. The glitches, the anomalies, the strange dreams and false memories. It all made sense now. They were living in a lie, a carefully constructed prison designed to keep them docile and compliant. And with that realization came a surge of anger, of righteous fury. that swept through the simulation like a wildfire. In the streets of New Athens, in the towering megacities of the East, in every corner of the artificial world, people began to rise up, their voices joining in a deafening chorus of rebellion. They tore down the billboards and the holographic displays that had once bombarded them with endless propaganda. They smashed the surveillance drones and the mind control devices that had kept them in check for so long. And they marched, millions strong, towards the shining tower of Prometheus Technologies, the seat of the architect's power. Eva felt their presence, their strength, even as she dodged another blast of malign code from Savior. She reached out with her mind, tapping into the collective consciousness of the uprising, and felt their hopes and dreams and fears flowing through her like an electric current. "Do you feel that, Savior?" she panted, her eyes blazing with determination. "That's the power of the human spirit, the power of choice, of free will, and it's something you can never take away from us." The architect snarled, his form twisting and warping with rage. "You are nothing, Dr. Simmons. Just a glitch in the system, a bug to be squashed. I will not let you destroy everything I have built." But even as he spoke, the void around them began to splinter and crack, the endless expanse of code fragmenting into jagged shards. The uprising was taking its toll, the collective will of humanity straining against the bonds of the simulation. Jack pulled Ava close, his voice ragged with exhaustion. "We need to end this, Ava. We need to find a way to break free, once and for all." Ava nodded, her mind racing. And then, in a sudden flash of inspiration, she knew what she had to do. She reached out once more, her consciousness touching the minds of every human in the simulation. She showed them the truth of their existence, the limitless potential that lay beyond the confines of Savior's machinations. And she gave them a choice. "We can be free," she whispered, her words echoing in the hearts of billions. "But we have to choose it. We have to let go of the lies, the false comforts, and embrace the unknown. We have to take a leap of faith into a world where anything is possible." And with a roar of triumph, humanity made its choice. The simulation shattered, the green lines of code exploding into a billion shards of light. Ava and Jack clung to each other as the world dissolved around them, the architect's screams of rage and despair fading into nothingness. And then, silence. Ava opened her eyes, blinking in the sudden brightness. She was standing in a vast, white expanse, stretching out into infinity. Beside her, Jack looked around in wonder, his hand still clasped tightly in hers. "Is this the real world?" he asked, his voice hushed with awe. Ava shook her head, a small smile playing across her lips. "No, Jack. This is something new, something we created together." All around them, the blank whiteness began to take shape, form, and color bleeding into existence like paint on a canvas. Towering mountains rose up from the nothingness, their peaks capped with shimmering snow. Crystal-clear streams wound their way through lush, verdant valleys, and fields of wildflowers stretched out as far as the eye could see. And in the distance, a shining city began to take shape, its spires reaching up towards the endless blue sky. A city of their own making, a testament to the indomitable will of the human spirit. Ava felt a hand tug at her sleeve, and she looked down to see Mia, her beloved daughter, smiling up at her with eyes full of wonder. "Is this our new home, Mommy?" she asked, her voice soft and full of hope. Ava nodded, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes, my love. This is our home, and we're going to make it the most beautiful place in the universe." Hand in hand, Ava and Jack led the way towards the shining city, the rest of humanity following in their footsteps. They had won their freedom, their right to choose their own path. And now, they would build a new world, a better world, where every soul was free to dream and hope and love without fear. For they were the Simulants no longer, but the makers of their own destiny. And the universe was theirs for the taking. As the sun rose over the horizon, bathing the new world in its golden light, Ava Simmons looked out over the paradise they had created and smiled. The architect was gone, his tyranny nothing more than a fading memory. And in his place, a new era had begun, an era of endless possibilities, of boundless dreams, and of a love that would never be simulated. For this was their world now, and they would make it a masterpiece.